Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. I was not at the work session or the executive session. You already called roll? Okay, you can add me to the list as we move forward. How's that?
All right, I can do that.
Thank you. If everybody will join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody. Nice crowd tonight. We'll try to keep on track and get you out of here at a reasonable hour. No ceremonies, presentations, or appointments tonight. Do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections to this agenda? No? If not, we'll move on to the consent calendar. And would you like to start, Chrissy?
I would like to start.
Thank you.
So on the consent calendar, we have the approval of the minutes from February 17th council meeting. We also have the minutes from the March 7th council meeting. I do have an amendment that I made to those. Mayor Pro Tem Valkar did point out that the resolution that was stated for the tie vote actually should have been Resolution 830, Series 2018, not Resolution 339, 1996. And then we have the approval of, it's actually the February 2019 Statement of Expenditures. And that's it.
Council, any questions? That's February instead of January on item number B. Questions for Mike? No questions.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to approve the items on the consent calendar.
Second. Thank you. Chrissy?
All right, Councilmember Case?
Yes.
Councilmember Harvey?
Yes.
Councilmember Labar?
Yes.
Mayor Levy?
Yes.
Councilmember Saunier?
Yes.
Councilmember Sawyer?
Yes.
I'm going in order. Mayor Pro Tem Carr?
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
7-0.
Mr. Mayor, if I have a question, and it's possibly for a point of information. The purpose of the work session was discuss one of the items that was in the consent calendar. Is it appropriate to discuss with the public what occurred there or not?
Absolutely. Would you like to take the lead on that?
No. I was hoping
Darren?
the city manager would.
Okay, great. I wasn't there, so this would be good information for me.
As part of the work session, we discussed formalizing an agreement with the school district to fund to pay for existing parking spaces that had been taken when the Woodland Aquatic Center was constructed at a cost of $67,500, and also discuss a recent donation that was given to the city to fund long-term maintenance and improved security for the Eric V. Dixon Memorial over at Memorial Park. And so City Council had questions regarding the history of both of those, and also talking about improved communication between City Council and staff so that City Council had more information prior to those decisions.
Thank you.
Council, anything in addition? Great. Thanks, Darren. Okay, we'll move forward. I don't have anybody signed up for public comment on items not on the agenda. If there is someone of that nature, this would be your time. Okay, if not, we'll move forward. We have no unfinished businesses tonight, and we'll move on to agenda item number 8, and ordinances on initial posting in Lower Pellegrino.
Thank you, Mayor Levy. Tonight, I am here to present first reading of Ordinance 1343 to rezone from MFS, Multifamily Suburban Residential, to CC, Community Commercial Zone District, and Ordinance 1344, a conditional use permit for light repair service use on Lot 13, Paradise Estates, filing number 2. There are 2 ordinances that were included in the packets that were distributed to council members. Tonight is the first reading and introduction of these ordinances, and it is March 21st, 2019. So this is a general map showing where the site is, approximately the southeastern quadrant of the city of Woodland Park. And this is an aerial showing the lot in question, Lot 13. And this is a plat showing the legal description, the legal area of the Lot 13, and this is a front facade of this lot. So this is just first reading. There is no public hearing tonight, and we will not be accepting a lot of questions. If you have questions on process, I can answer those. But simply, staff recommends that Ordinance 1343 and Ordinance 1344 be introduced, approved on first reading, and scheduled for a public hearing on April 4th. That concludes my recommendation.
Thank you, Laura. Council, we're on initial posting, so if you have a question relative to process, if not, I'll take a motion to approve. Public comment can be heard, but we don't have public session. We don't have a session today, so if you're interested in speaking on this subject, then please be here April 4th, 2 weeks from today.
Move to approve on initial posting.
Second. Thank you. Chrissy?
Harvey?
Yes.
Labar? Yes. Levy?
Yes.
Sonier? Sawyer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Case?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. 7-0, to be exact. Public hearings, we move on to number 9A. I know most of you are here tonight for number 9A, so here we go. I'll hand it right back over to Laura Pellegrino. Before I do that, I want to make note that a couple things. This is a QJ issue, so I will read the appropriate speech, which sounds like this. Council members use electronic devices to access the materials relevant to the public hearing before us. Be assured that it is the common practice of this city council that these devices are not being used for texting, emailing, or other communications during these public hearings. That said, we need to chat a little bit about ex parte communications, and I'll start with me, and most of council understands this. In talking with Jason, maybe moving forward, we might need to have a little better training for all of us relative to these kinds of issues. So this public hearing was open 2 weeks ago, and then it wasn't completed. And I know, starting with me, there was some communication relative to this matter which should never have been had. And so mine was kind of cut short because someone came and said, you shouldn't do that. I was talking to Brett for a couple minutes after the meeting, which was inappropriate. And I understand there's been some other conversation. And so the training will help, I'm sure. In the meantime, if there's anything that you feel that you've gained relative to this particular hearing, I would recommend that you recuse yourself. That said, we will move forward.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say that I did receive an email from a citizen regarding this, and then that email was forwarded by the city clerk along with two other, it was a form of a letter with regards to this issue. It did show up from the city clerk. However, I had no conversation with anyone regarding this issue. That was the only thing that happened outside of the public hearing.
Did anybody else on council get that and respond to it?
Did not respond to it.
I think if you don't respond, if I'm not mistaken, then you're not out of order. Is that correct?
So the whole point is to ensure that all council members have all of the information. So if there's anything additional that needs to be brought before the body of information that you did receive, that's what we're looking for at this point, if anything. And also to ensure that you have not made your mind up before this meeting. So the idea of ex parte communications, you don't want to affect the fact finder yourselves and make it so that you've reached a decision prior to today. So if you have any additional information that's been provided, we've already talked about the couple of emails or letters that have been provided to all of council. If there's anything additional that needs to be brought up or discussed, now's the time to do that, so that way we can continue with the public hearing and make sure all of council has all of the ability to hear all of the information and nobody's made any decisions prior to this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I have had zero conversations with anybody about this, so.
Do you want to ask us individually?
I don't think we need to. We trust everybody. And just know if you gained any information, this is now the time to share it with the rest of us before we move forward. If not, I think we can move forward, which we will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. And thanks, you know what, we're all trying to get better, right?
That's right.
And that's what this is all about. Okay, so Laura, we'll move on to you for the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I would like to say that the Planning Department looks forward to training council on
Good.
conflicts of interest and ex parte communication,
Perfect.
which we hope to include other boards and committees in as well.
We're all trying to get better.
Yeah. All right, so I'd like to begin by introducing Erin Obering, who is the property owner, and she will do a presentation, and then I will do a presentation on how it conforms to our current requirements and criteria. So we'll start with Erin.
Thank you, Laura. As Laura mentioned, I'm Erin Obering. I own lots 6 and 7. Which, good evening, Council, Mayor Pro Tem, and Mr. Mayor. I really like your outfit tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Would you just add your address to your speech for me, please?
Oh, sure. We're the owner of lots 6 and 7 of the Aspenwood subdivision, which are not currently addressed. But that is their official title. We are located in the Forest Edge neighborhood. I appreciate your guys' time again tonight. I realize that you've heard some of this before, but I want to start off by apologizing. I didn't come prepared last week with the visuals and context to make this project clear. And I think all I did last week was create a whole bunch of confusion for the council and for the landowners who saw this for the first time. So to kick us off, I want to do a quick review of our applications and then take a quick look at the map to create some context for the conversation. And then we will dive right into the 11 approval criteria. We have submitted a change in use application for Lot 6 and Lot 7 of the Aspenwood subdivision to construct one duplex on each lot. The Aspenwood subdivision is located in Forest Edge, and it's made up of 12 lots. This subdivision does include neighborhood commercial and urban multifamily zoning. Lots 6 and 7 of the Aspenwood subdivision are zoned neighborhood commercial. Residential with up to 2 units in one structure is a permitted use in the neighborhood commercial zone. Each of our units will be approximately 1,500 square feet, and we'll have 2 2-bedroom units and 2 3-bedroom units, each with a 1-car garage. To create a little context, you can see the map up on the screen. Sorry, it is not easy with a mouse pad. As you can see, we are located at the Star. We are just north of the high school. We are north of Lake Street and east of Rampart Range Road. We are directly to the north of us is Rampart Family Dental, which is located kind of in the middle of the screen. Directly to the south of us is Judd's Glass. Directly to the west is a single-family residence, and then directly to the east of us is Aspenwood Condominiums, which includes 24 residential units. When taking into consideration the neighborhood as a whole, Forest Edge is primarily residential with a mix of uses, including single-family, residential, and both low and high-density multifamily, along with some commercial. As you can see, 4 of the 9 businesses in the area do share a minimum of 1 lot line with residential. Judd's Glass, Peak Medical, and the Stampede Building are all directly across from Aspenwood Condominiums, which have 24 residential units, as I referred to earlier. So again, it's a nice mix of uses in the area, but primarily residential. Are there any questions on the location or the application itself before we dive into the criteria? Perfect. We have combined the criteria into 5 similar themes to try and expedite the conversation. As Laura mentioned, staff's review of the application did find that we are in full compliance with all requirements and codes necessary to receive approval. We are not requesting any accommodations, considerations, or exceptions from any zoning or building code, so this is a pretty by-the-book application. The first criteria that we are going to take a look at are 4, 6, and 11, which states that the development and use may be required to provide architectural design schemes and may also require amenities such as, but not limited to, fencing, landscaping, buffer, and aesthetic enhancement measures, shall be in harmony with the area and shall conform to the provisions, standards, and requirements of all city codes and regulations adopted and in effect at time of application. For this one, we're going to look at the site plan and the exterior elevations. Taking a look at the site plan, you can see the building is essentially situated on the center of the lot. The building location allowed for more than ample parking while still maintaining as much landscaping as possible. We really wanted to make sure we were maximizing our landscaping on the site given its neighborhood location. The proposed driveways are below the minimum width allowance for each of the lot frontages and are in full compliance. They are addressed along Forest Edge Road, which was the request of the fire chief. And each driveway includes a minimum of 2 exterior parking spaces, and there's actually 3 on the south lot, and then 1 interior parking space in the garage. We are providing 50% more parking than is required by code. Previously, Dr. Morrell had raised a concern about the homeowners and adjacent businesses utilizing his parking lot. Prior to either of these council meetings, we did make an offer to that adjacent landowner to purchase signage for his lot to help him control parking on that lot, to say that it was for his development only. Given the large number of zoning requirements for this lot, we thought a table might be easier. So for the first requirement, you can see that we are required to have a minimum lot frontage of 40 feet. We are in compliance with 50 feet for each lot. The second requirement is an 8-foot side setback, and again, we are in compliance. The next requirement is a 25-foot front and rear setback. We are proposing a 37-foot setback, front setback, and a 39-foot rear setback for Lot 7, and a 29-foot front setback and a 47-foot rear setback for Lot 6. So again, we're not maximizing our building footprint on the site. We're really making an effort to maximize our green space. Next, we have the building height maximum, which is 35 feet. We are proposing 26 feet, so again, we're in compliance. And the minimum landscaping is 25%. Again, we're proposing 50% for Lot 7 and 54% for Lot 6. So again, in compliance. The final requirement is that we are required to have 4 parking spaces per lot, and we are proposing a minimum of 6. So more than 50% over code. At the last meeting, it was suggested that that building in a neighborhood commercial zone would somehow circumvent residential height, setback, and building requirements. We did want to address this specifically to make sure that this inaccuracy didn't have an impact on the perceptions of future development in these zones. So we have put together a table that outlines the requirements of neighborhood commercial, urban residential, suburban residential, and both multifamily zones. As you can see, the minimum lot footage across all zones is 40 feet, as are the setback requirements of 8 feet on the sides and 25 feet on the front and rear. Residential zones do have the lowest height allowance in the city, which is lower than the neighborhood commercial zone at 30 feet, but again, we're in compliance. The minimum landscaping requirement for all commercial zones is 25%. There is no minimum landscaping requirement in residential zones prescribed by the code. So it's a little bit more strict for commercial, but we have met that requirement. The next is open space. For commercial, the open space requirement is 20%, which allows commercial to maximize lots in a way that residential is not allowed to. The minimum open space on a residential use is 40%, and we have met that at 50 and 54%. Do you guys have any, and then again, sorry, the parking requirement, we are required to have 4 and we have 6, and that's across the board. Are there any questions on the differences?
And the 6 parking spaces are per unit or per
so
duplex?
There's 3 exterior in the, on Lot 7, we have 3 per unit, so we have 12 total. That was a convoluted answer. Jumping ahead of myself. Okay. We did go ahead and put together a visual to show the project in context of the adjacent structures. To the north, you can see Rampart Family Dental, which is situated on 2 lots. As you saw earlier on the map, the chiropractor, which is north of the Rampart Family Dental, and the Rock Shop, which is to the east of us, are also situated on 2 lots, while the remainder of all the other single-family, multifamily, and commercial in Forest Edge is situated on 1 lot. To the south, we have Judd's Glass and the Stampede Building, which this is Judd's Glass, and this is the Stampede Building right here. Both of these are situated on lots that are the same size as ours. As you can see, Judd's Glass has a significantly larger building footprint than we are proposing, but we just wanted to give you a little context. So if we had built a building similar to Judd's Glass, this is what it would look like. The Stampede Building is a few feet longer than ours, but much more similar to our proposal, which, as you can see in comparison on the screen, to provide context for some of the nearby commercial. And then again, we actually overlaid the Rock Shop, and we chose this location because the Stampede Building and the Rock Shop were constructed most recently in the Aspenwood subdivision, and we wanted to provide context of the type of commercial that's being built today. Single story is a lot less common in this current building environment, which I'm sure you've noticed, and we'll talk about why in a minute. As you can see, the Rock Shop does have a significantly larger building footprint than the residential use that we're proposing. The other thing is that they're both a little bit taller, which we'll show you in a minute. Given that this neighborhood is primarily residential and located in a neighborhood commercial zone, which is a buffer zone, we believe that maximizing the green space is going to be really important, and we don't believe it's in the best interest of the city or the area residents and businesses to have another large commercial structure here that is either taller or has a larger footprint or both. There was also a question raised last week about how close Judd's Glass's building is to our shared property line, which is this property line right here. He's approximately 2.5 feet off this property line. The Judd's Glass building, and Laura can talk more about this if you have questions, but Judd's Glass was not built in compliance with the 8-foot setback requirement, which was the standard at Woodland Park at the time of its construction. There is no record of an approved variance, meaning that the building is considered existing non-conforming. Had he obtained a variance, it would have required that he prove he was inflicting no burden on the neighboring properties, which is us. Neighboring property owners are not liable for or required to compensate for their neighbors' non-conforming existing structures. From a noise perspective, Mr. Conroy brought up a concern last week about the noise generated by his business. We did take that very seriously. And we did talk to 3 adjacent property owners, including Dr. Morrell, all of whom mentioned that they had never heard them over there. We did take it a step further and requested a review of all noise complaints against the address, and there are no documented noise complaints against this address. We do think that given the fact that there are 24 residential units directly adjacent, like right here, if this were going to be an issue, it would have come to light before today. Although we didn't find any evidence to substantiate the concern about noise, we did take extra precautions, and we have included noise dampening construction materials and windows to ensure no issues arise in the future. The next item we wanted to address was the visual impact of the proposal. There was concern expressed that we may be blocking signage from the roadway. We did amend our proposal to include split rail fencing along the north boundary of Lot 7, which is right here, and then the rear setback of Lot 6 right here to ensure that no signage is in any way blocked. As you can see from the visual on the screen, the Rampart Dental Clinic signage is visible all the way back to Lake in Rampart, which is 3 full lots away. Are there any questions on that before we move on? We'll take a look at the architectural elevations. As you can see on this slide, we are proposing earth tone stucco and rock wainscoting along with bronze metal roofing. In addition, we've really tried to work in some interesting roof lines and interesting windows to align with the Mountain Western theme of Woodland Park and the adjacent finishes on adjacent structures. This slide simply shows the exterior finishes used on the buildings in the Aspenwood subdivision. As you can see, the prevailing finish is stucco or stucco with an accent. So we align well there. We talked a little bit about the height requirement earlier. As you can see, we peak at 26 feet. As previously discussed, the height limit in this zone is 35 feet, while it is 30 feet in all residential zones. Again, we are in full compliance at 26 feet. The setback and lot coverage requirements that have been implemented into codes across the country are stricter than ever before. We do think that this is a positive change because it does increase green space and reduces the heat islands and drainage issues that have been caused by overpaving. It does, however, encourage two-story building, as I'm sure you've seen in building trends. We are lucky, though, as a residential use, we were able to incorporate a garden level into our design. Based on ADA compliance, if we were to build this as commercial, it would have to be 3 feet taller because we cannot have a garden level. In addition, we did commission to have the elevations professionally shot on all of the adjacent structures. This chart simply shows the heights of all the buildings in the adjacent vicinity as a means of comparison. So as you can see, we're kind of right in the middle. We're not the tallest and we're not the shortest. We also commissioned this line rendering, which shows a side profile of the Aspenwood subdivision from Rampart Range Road. As you can see, that Rampart Range is sloping at just under 2 degrees in this area. On the left, right here, is the Rock Shop and Rampart Family Dental. In the middle, you'll see our 2 proposed properties, and behind us is the Aspenwood condominiums. Judd's Glass is right here, and then this is the Stampede building. As you can see, we fit well into the context of the Aspenwood subdivision generally and the Forest Edge subdivision more holistically. A couple of other items of note before we move on. An HOA will govern the aesthetic, landscaping, parking, and ongoing maintenance of the property. The HOA will also actively promote work-live uses of home offices, such as accountants, computer engineers and programmers, and telecommuters like me, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. And then finally, temporary construction fencing and signage will control site access with ingress, egress along Forest Edge Road throughout construction. Are there any questions on any of that before we move on? Here is 2 and 10, which reads that the proposed development shall not endanger the public health and welfare, and we believe we're in compliance here. That's a good one. The next requirement is that the proposed development shall be designed, constructed, and maintained to accommodate traffic generated. As you can see from the chart, residential creates significantly less traffic than a similar commercial use, approximately 30%. As we mentioned before, Forest Edge and almost everything north of Lake is residential. Given the proximity to the school, aquatic center, and playground facilities, the sidewalk along Rampart Range Road is heavily trafficked by kiddos and their parents every day. We do believe, and again, there are 24 residential units directly to the east of us and single family to the west. We do believe that it's in the best interest of the neighborhood and the safety of pedestrians to not construct another high traffic commercial building in this location. The city's master plan also encourages a mix of uses for this very reason, among others, so that we don't end up with a high concentration of high impact uses in one area, especially in these buffer zones like neighborhood commercial, which are predominantly residential, and the low traffic impact of residential lends itself well to this neighborhood location. Questions on that? The proposed development shall not substantially injure the value of vicinity properties. Obviously, as the owners of the properties, I would not be standing here if I did not wholeheartedly believe that this was the best and highest use of the property. However, opinions are subjective, so we did engage Carrie Kilgore to complete a comprehensive analysis of the project. Ms. Kilgore, we did engage Ms. Kilgore based on her qualifications. She's the owner of Prestige Realty. She is a resident of Woodland Park and has been in property management and sales for over 30 years. She specializes in both commercial and residential sales, which gives her an excellent perspective for this. She also is in the top 10% of real estate performers in the entire Pikes Peak region and holds a Master's of Business Administration and a Master's of Regional Planning. Her background and education make her highly qualified for this type of analysis. She did provide a letter, which all of you have a copy of in your packet for reference, and she is here tonight to speak and answer any questions that you might have. We did summarize her findings on this slide. For her analysis, she did look at both residential and commercial sales in the NC, CC, and CBD zones. Because we do have a very large mix of uses existing in Woodland Park, any new use is going to impact all values. What she did find is that the sales are strong with an average increase of 25% for residential and 12% for commercial. It is her professional opinion that the market responds very well to Woodland Park's mixed uses, which speaks really highly of the effectiveness of our master plan. Do you have any questions on the analysis I can answer?
Council?
Finally, we made it to the last criteria, which states that the proposed development and use shall have a demonstrated direct need to be located at the location proposed, conform to the provisions, objectives, and policies of all city plans adopted and in effect at the time of application, including but not limited to growth management, transportation, utilities, capital improvements, and downtown redevelopment. As we reviewed before and as outlined in the staff report, we are in full compliance with all zoning, building, and use requirements. In addition, we are not requesting any consideration or variances from any code. From a site drainage, I skipped just an entire slide. I'm sorry. I have to go back. Let's see. For site drainage, we did, this one's about, I apologize, I skipped an entire slide. For drainage, we did consult directly with city planning and engineering staff, and we have developed a very low impact plan for our site drainage. The rock swales between units and along the driveways aid in on-site capture and absorption and increase water quality runoff. In addition, they provide spacing for on-site snow storage. We are proposing 30-inch smooth-sided culverts at the direction of the city, which will provide 50% more capacity for flows than the existing and will result in an overall improvement in area drainage. Which I know there were quite a few questions on drainage last week, and I'm sure Ben can speak to this much better than I can as our resident expert. Any questions? No questions on drainage? Okay. Whew, now we're at the slide I thought we were at. This is what I get for standing up here for too long. This is my bad. This is when we're talking about the direct need. Okay. From a location perspective, we wanted to do a quick review of the intent of the neighborhood commercial zone and review the map location. The neighborhood commercial zone was developed and intended to provide a buffer between the strictly residential zones and the more intensive commercial zones. This zone is not intended to be dominated by any one use, but rather promote a balanced mix of uses, including residential, low-impact commercial, and public uses, which provide for that gradual buffer. Currently, the uses of the NC zone property in town break down to reflect this concept, with just over half as residential use, about a third commercial, and then we have a few public and religious uses, and the remainder are vacant. This is reflected on the map on the screen, which demonstrates a clear mix of uses in the immediate area, providing buffer between those more strictly residential zones and those more intense commercial zones toward our city core. And this proposal aligns directly with the intent of the mixed use of this zone. Next, I wanted to take a quick look at the zoning map to point out the location of existing multifamily properties in town and then the location of zoned vacant land. As you can see, our project is located at the yellow star. We are located in Forest Edge, which is the most concentrated area of multifamily in the city core. By recent count, there are over 30 fourplexes and 20 duplexes, along with the Aspenwood condominiums. Directly to the north and west of us is primarily single-family residential and public uses. The vacant multifamily properties remaining are generally along the fringes of town, including along 24 as you're entering town and as you're exiting town, and then again on 67 as you're beginning to leave town. The few properties remaining vacant that are geared more toward the higher density multifamily and do not meet the diverse needs of the city. This was acknowledged in the 2010 Comprehensive Master Plan, which addressing the housing diversity issue was listed as the #1 city goal to come out of that plan. The council did their part by directly addressing the lack of housing diversity in May of 2016 with the passage of Ordinance 1281, which made residential with up to 2 dwelling units in one structure and allowed use in commercial zones. The Ordinance 1281 was passed unanimously by council, and I just wanted to take a moment to read the highlights of that ordinance. The Woodland Park Comprehensive Plan identifies a balanced and diverse housing supply and providing a wide range of housing options to residents as a community goal. The way of addressing these goals is to allow residential uses in certain commercial zones as a permitted use, allowing up to 2 dwelling units within the same structure, regardless of form of ownership, in the NC, CC, and CBD as a permitted use addresses this comprehensive plan goal by providing additional housing options to landlords while minimizing impact to commercial areas, and allowing for such units limited to 2 as a permitted use furthers our comprehensive plan goals. the City Council of the City of Woodland Park finds, determines, and declares that it is in the best interest of the citizens of Woodland Park to allow up to 2 dwelling units within the same structure, regardless of form of ownership, in certain commercial zones, districts, as a permitted use within the city. As a result of this ordinance, residential with up to 2 dwelling units in one building is a permitted use in the neighborhood commercial zone, which is what we're proposing. This is exciting. What is exciting is that the market has actually responded really strongly to the ordinance. Since its adaptation in 2016, 6 properties have submitted application and received subsequent approval. These residential units have been in the NCCC and CBD zones. This slide shows the approximate location of the properties, which I wanted to quickly run through. The first one is 400 South Avenue, which is approximately 2 blocks west of us off Lake, and that is also in the neighborhood commercial zone. The second application was for 201, 203, and 205 Boundary. These are located on Boundary about a block off of Highway 24, just east of 24. They're bounded on the west by Loaf and Jug and Jimmy John's and Napa. On the north is the Forest Service, and then on the west is a warehouse facility, and on the south are residential units, and these are in the CC zone. The next application was for 118 and 202 West Street. Again, these are approximately 1 block north of Highway 24. They're kind of kitty corner to Cafe Leo. These were actually existing commercial offices that were converted to a residential use. As you can see, our proposal aligns well with how this ordinance has been adopted to date. And taking a quick look at the 2010 Comprehensive Plan, one of the land use and growth actions that came out of the 2010 Comprehensive Master Plan was to encourage quality infill and development and redevelopment of both residential and commercial. Quality infill projects like this one keep our local economy strong. It infuses our economy through local retailers like UPass Sand and Gravel, Foxworth Galbraith, Judd's Glass, Sherwin-Williams, and hardware stores through material sales. It provides jobs for our local contractors and trades during construction, along with ongoing maintenance. In addition, these residents are the customer base that our local businesses like Judd's Glass and the Dental Clinic rely on. We have the city has received letters of support for this proposal from local business owners who rely on continued infill projects just like this one to keep their businesses strong. One of the economic development objectives that came out of the comprehensive plan was to increase the desirability of Woodland Park as a place to live and work by providing diverse housing options, expanding educational opportunities, and adding community amenities. For Woodland Park to remain vibrant, we have to attract young talent and families to our city. Our local businesses' success is dependent on our ability to attract and retain young scientists at BSI, educators for our fantastic public schools, and we need medical professionals to support our local doctors and dentists and hospitals, and we need people to work in these wonderful trades. We have the jobs available to attract them. Our city is vibrant and it's beautiful and it provides all the amenities for a place to work and live, but we also have to provide housing options that meet their needs. A recent study completed by the National Home Builders Association found that 35% of home builders in the market today are between the age of 30 and 37. The average cost of a home purchased by this market is $300,000 and is 1,800 square feet. According to the most recent statistics, the median home price for a home for sale in Woodland Park is over $400,000 with a median home sale of $360,000. The homes that we're proposing directly meet this need. It also aligns exactly with the existing neighborhood. The home size between 1,400 and 1,800 square feet in the townhome area of Forest Edge, where we are located, that have sold over the last 6 months have been priced between $300,000 and $320,000. Our proposed size and price point is exactly in line with these adjacent sales and will meet the needs of this ever-growing and critical market. The issue, if we don't provide these housing options in Woodland Park, they are going to go down the hill and end up buying in Colorado Springs. The issue is addressed in the city's comprehensive master plan under land use action that states evaluate contemplated projects at their location for conformance with the comprehensive plan to help the city's housing inventory to become more diverse and less reliant on single-family residential, which has historically been our core focus of new development. This is a critical issue that we absolutely have to address as a city. A recent study by the Society of Human Resource Management stated that 39% of those polled stated they would leave their job because of a long commute. Harvard scientist Robert Putnam discovered that for every 10 minutes spent commuting, it results in 10% fewer social interactions, leading to less satisfied employees. In addition, it further found that every 20 minutes added to a commute is the emotional equivalent of a $19,000 pay cut, so I'm fairly confident that most of us don't make any money, which is harming our ability to attract and retain talent. We have to create housing opportunities that meet the needs and keep our workforce local. The other issue is that once you're in the car, your options for employment and services are limitless. It's far less likely that someone working in Woodland Park but living outside the city are going to go to dinner at our local restaurants. They're not going to our grocery stores. They're not using our local medical professionals. They're taking their money and they're investing it elsewhere. Creating opportunities for these young professionals to live in our city will improve retention rates, and it will have the added bonus of encouraging investment in our community. Just a few years ago, my husband and I were these people. We were purchasing our first house just a couple blocks up the street on Gunnison Avenue. It was a really big moment in our lives, and since then we've worked really hard and now are in a position where we can invest in our community and provide the same opportunity to others just like us. We do have letters from multiple business owners, which the city LOR has, including Dave Bryant, the owner of BSI, supporting this project and underscoring the importance of diversifying our housing options to help us attract and retain young professionals. In addition, we have several teachers in the audience tonight, one of whom is a new teacher who grew up in Woodland Park, went to school in Woodland Park, and he just applied for an open position in our school district. And it's more important to him than ever, and our housing crunch is a real issue for him, and it's having an impact on his life and his ability to take a job up here. He's actually going to speak a little bit during public comment about that. These young professionals also represent our young families.
Excuse me, Aaron. It's been 30 minutes.
Sorry, I will skip it.
Yeah, let's try to sum it up as best you can.
This proposal, we need to attract our young professionals to the city. I did want to tell you guys a little bit about myself and why I am passionate about this project. I grew up in Woodland Park, about 3 blocks north of here. My family has owned the property in the middle of Woodland Park for almost 100 years. I'm the 5th generation on my mom's side and 3rd on my dad's. My grandfather served on the city council. My other grandpa was the fire chief. My family runs 3 small businesses out of Woodland Park, and my cousins go to school up here, one of whom is in the audience tonight to check out how council works. Growing up here, I spent all my time running around this town, and it really instilled in me a sense of community and understanding how to connect to my community. My first job was actually for this city. I sold popcorn at Meadowood, and it instilled a sense of community in me very young. The experiences that I had growing up in the core of Woodland Park have influenced me personally and professionally. We do operate under several key values as we consider projects like this, and one of the key issues is walkability, community connection, and shared experiences. The location of this project is directly adjacent to our school's aquatic center and near the parks, and is close enough to walk to dinner, one of our excellent restaurants. It's very walkable. Walkable cities offer more than just charm, according to a Blueprint study. They are safer, their residents tend to be healthier, and they have generally higher property values. In addition, according to Smart Growth America, in the U.S., the most walkable cities have an average of a 38% higher GDP per capita than the least walkable. So again, I appreciate your time tonight. We believe that our proposal directly aligns and is consistent with the application of the 1281 ordinance. We believe that this meets every requirement outlined in the code and standard required to receive approval. It directly aligns with the city's goals and objectives and actions specified in the comprehensive plan, and it will enhance our city and our economy.
Thank you, Aaron.
I apologize. I did faster in front of my own mirror.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
I'm sure. Thank you very much. We'll go to the staff presentation and then we'll come back.
Thank you, Mayor Levy. So part of planning school teaches me how to talk real fast, so I'm going to talk pretty fast as I go through my presentation. So tonight we are here because the March 7th hearing on this item was tabled because of a tie vote. So today's March 21st. Here's the site. You can see it's in the central eastern portion of the city. This is Lot 6 and 7. Lot 6 is the one to the north. Lot 7 is the one to the south. Both lots are under consideration for a change in use today. And this is an excerpt, or a little snippet from the plat showing the subdivision and all of the lots in the subdivision. You can see Lot 6 and 7 here, and they are similar to all the lots that are pretty much along Rampart Range Road, except as you get further south here. This is Lake Ave coming in, Forest Edge Road to the east, Rampart Range here. This is just a quick aerial showing some of the surrounding uses. Again, here is the two lots in this red rectangle. Rampart Dental immediately to the north, medical offices on the other side of this road, a Forest Edge circle, is a light industrial use, not a light industrial zone. It's an electronics repair shop. Dental offices here, warehouse, self-storage here, the Aspenwood condos, the Judd's Glass building right here, storage and offices and medical offices in this quadrant right here. So it gives you an idea of some of the surrounding uses. Surrounding here is the higher density duplexes, condos, those types of uses in the MFS and MFU zones. And then to the west, you can see single-family residential development. This is the zoning map. Again, the site is shown here in red. This is the neighborhood commercial zone district in the light pink. Multifamily urban in the dark brown, which is the condos. The light brown is multifamily suburban. Again, these are high-density zone districts, high-density residential zone districts. To the south is the high school, public, semi-public land zone district, the aquatic center. You can see the urban residential zone in the dark yellow, suburban residential in the light yellow surrounding the perimeter of the zone map. And then you can see also community commercial as you go down on Baldwin Street going south and immediately opposite of the high school. So that is, again, just some of the zone characteristics in this area. This is a photo showing it standing right on Rampart Range Road looking north. You can see Judd's Glass here. You can see the vacant two lots right here, and you can see the dental office right here. And this gives you a good idea of the structures that are in this commercial zone that have already been built. So you're looking at gable roofs, you're looking at some higher structures with clear story windows, a little bit taller than a single story, although this is a single story structure. And there are, and we'll see another picture of some of these double story structures, two-story structures. This is looking directly into the lot, looking east towards the Rampart Range. You can see that it's a fairly flat, highly developable infill lot within the city of Woodland Park. This is from Forest Edge Road looking west over the two vacant lots. This is the dentist's office and his parking lot. This is Judd's Glass. This is just a brief slide showing some of the characteristics on the site. The black is the footprints with the decks on the east side of both of those, of all of the dwelling units. The site slopes from this corner all the way down to this corner, and as you saw in the images, it's a very slight slope. There are no issues with respect to drainage that the applicant cannot handle and mitigate as part of his application process and part of the review. The red is the building envelope pursuant to, as limited by the setbacks for the NC zone district. So it has a 25-foot setback, a 25-foot front and rear setback, 8-foot side setbacks. All structures in this area, whether you're building a residential dwelling unit or a commercial building, would have these setbacks that they would have to conform to. This is just a quick rendering showing some of the development on the site and what it would look like. So again, the black is the footprint, the impervious area. You can see driveways coming in from Forest Edge Road. The green shows you the pervious area, the grassed area, and the trees that the applicants are willing to plant. These are swales that would bring the drainage to the culverts that they're proposing to put along Forest Edge Road to handle the drainage, the historic drainage on site. And these swales are along the sides and in through the middle. Again, the elevations, earth tone stucco, wood pergola, wood trim, bronze color metal roof, all pretty characteristic of what you're seeing in the neighborhood in terms of the gable roofs, the size of the structure, the windows. It could easily convert into a commercial use if they wanted to. and it adapts well as a residential use. So staff did do a complete review and analysis of this application. We sent a referral of the application to all of the internal departments within the city, the utilities department, the public works department, the building department. We also sent it out to external agencies, the fire department, IREA, Black Hills, Baja Cable, the cable TDS, and CenturyLink. We received no written concerns or responses from any external agencies or internal agencies regarding this application and the proposed development. We also did public notice of the March 7th meeting and of tonight's hearing. We sent out letters for the March 7th hearing to all adjacent property owners within 150 feet and more of this site. We did posters. We also published in the Courier. We did receive letters. Many of those letters I have copied and were in the packet for both the March 7th meeting, and then we sent out emails with all the letters received subsequent to the March 7th meeting. So very briefly, I just want to go over the Neighborhood Commercial Zone District. As an outright permitted use in the Neighborhood Commercial Zone District, for instance, anybody could come in with a site plan tomorrow to apply for a health club or a sports club, a vet clinic, a pet shop or a grooming shop, auto parts and accessory sales, a contractor's office, a professional business office, a health service clinic, a pharmacy, a library, an art gallery, a museum, and the list goes on, as I'm sure you've read as part of your packet. And these are all outright permitted uses, just as a residential use of up to 2 dwelling units is a permitted conditional use. So typically these have been permitted and approved administratively. But when we get a concern or a complaint regarding a permitted conditional use for residential in the commercial zone, the regulation requires that we bring it before council. And that's why we're here tonight, because we have received letters of concern regarding this proposed development. Conditional uses, again, conditional use requires planning commission review and approval and also city council approval. So some of the uses that would be permitted in here, for instance, are a private school, a church, a grocery store, a wholesale trade distribution warehouse. Again, those would have to come and get approval from council. The Neighborhood Commercial Zone District has limitations just like any other zone district in the city. This applicant with this proposal has complied with all of these requirements and limitations. They meet the maximum height. They are only 26 feet, so they are below the 35-foot maximum height. They comply with all the setbacks. They comply with the frontage requirement, nor are they at this time proposing any kind of a subdivision, although in the future they will be coming forward with a townhouse plat that will individualize each of the units for individual ownership. They meet all the parking standards in the Neighborhood Commercial Zone District. They meet the fencing and shrubbery requirements. They would need a special permit, a separate permit for the fence, as they would for the sign. They meet the sidewalk requirements. They either have to install the sidewalk along any public right-of-way when there isn't one, or they have to submit a fee in lieu of that sidewalk cost. And they meet the 25% landscaping requirements. So when we receive a complaint pursuant to the municipal code with respect to residential development in a commercial zone, we have to come before council. And the criteria by which we make a decision regarding an application of this type are the 11 conditional use permit standards that we have in the municipal code. Now, this is not an application for a conditional use permit, but these are the criteria that we use. So here they are in brief. Is the need appropriate for this site? Is there a need for residential use at this location? Staff believes there is a need. There's a strong need for residential development in the city and in workforce housing. There's a special need for workforce housing in the city, for accessible housing, for options of different types of housing, for diverse housing, for a variety of different types of housing. And in the approval of this regulation that allowed for residential development in commercial zones, the city agreed with many of the policies and objectives and goals in the comprehensive plan to encourage mixed use in neighborhood commercial zone districts and in community commercial and in the central business district. So a mix of housing in commercial zone districts is what the city has envisioned and would like to see and what staff encourages. Is there an impact to public health and welfare if this application proceeds? Staff believes there is not. As a matter of fact, there is no impact to public health and welfare should this get developed as proposed. Will there be an impact to property values? Staff does not think so. Staff agrees with the applicant's letter from their real estate broker and believes that development of a vacant lot will increase property values. And the quality of development proposed will also increase property values. Does this proposed development harmonize with the neighborhood, with the uses, with the character? Staff believes yes, it does. It complies in architecturally and in use, in the uses that are proposed. Remember, this is not a rezoning, but this is just allowing a residential use in a commercial zone district. It does not eliminate the potential for the neighborhood commercial zone uses to occur, should some uses want to occur in the future. Will it comply with city plans? Yes, staff gave examples of what policies from the 2010 comprehensive plan it does comply with. And will it comply with city regulations? Yes, they will be required to comply with the building code, the zoning development, the zoning code, and any other drainage and engineering standards that we have when they go to build, as any applicant would be for construction. Are there impacts because of traffic? Yes, there will be more traffic because vacant land right now is being developed, and the traffic will be less than if it were to be developed as commercial. Is there going to be drainage impacts? Yes, but the applicant can mitigate those drainage impacts in such a way that will comply with our drainage criteria and will drain all the water where it's supposed to go so that it doesn't impact negatively to any of the surrounding properties. How is the applicant going to address water, wastewater, and sewer? We believe that they can comply and that we have adequate provision for water and sewer for this proposed development as they're proposing it. Are there any hazards related to this development, either on-site or as a result of this development? Staff believes there are none and that it complies. Are there any architectural design standards? Staff believes it complies with the Mountain Western theme and that it would be an enhancement to this neighborhood. That they've mixed the architectural elevations and renderings. So what were the concerns raised? I'd like to just briefly summarize and go through these. These are the concerns that were raised at the last public hearing and comments made by council members as well. Of course, we're going to have another public hearing and you'll hear maybe some of these concerns plus maybe more. At any rate, some of the concerns I heard. It doesn't harmonize. The building's too high. Most of the buildings around there are one story. The architecture doesn't look like a commercial building, or it doesn't even look like a residential building. The lots are too small that you're trying to stuff these big buildings into these small lots, and that it isn't in keeping with the commercial character of the area. Staff doesn't agree with any of these comments. We believe it does harmonize, and we've gone through all of the reasons we believe it does. We believe the architecture harmonizes with the surrounding area. Many of the buildings in the surrounding area look like residences. They have the gable roof. They don't look like these industrial buildings. They don't look commercial, and this would fit in with that. And remember that the commercial use is still applicable in this area. So the architecture we feel is fine. The building height we feel complies. Aaron did an excellent presentation showing some of the surrounding building heights and how this might work in with that. We do not believe the lots are too small, that the applicant has done a fine job fitting the building to the lots, and as a matter of fact, they haven't even maximized their building envelopes. We don't believe that it impairs the commercial character in any way, and as a matter of fact, as I've said, commercial uses can go into these residential developments. Some concerns raised were about the building and landscaping blocking signs to other businesses. The applicant has made changes to make sure that some of the signs are still visible to the dental office, for instance. And again, the building is not any higher than some of the surrounding buildings, and a commercial building could come in too, and you would have the same issues. So I think this applicant has been very cognizant and compassionate with respect to surrounding uses and businesses. Some argue that straight commercial is more appropriate in this zone district. Again, the neighborhood commercial zone district and the CC and the CBD zone districts have all the option and flexibility to allow for residential uses in a commercial zone. The neighborhood commercial zone district is the least impactful of all of our commercial zones. And as a matter of fact, businesses that come into the neighborhood commercial zone district have to have no impacts outside of the walls of the building that's proposed. So Judd's Glass, for instance, has to contain all of their impact within their building, or any commercial business in the neighborhood commercial zone can't have outside storage, for instance. So in the neighborhood commercial zone district, it is the least impacted of all our commercial zones. And so putting residential in this zone district is not a more intensive use or going to create conflicts or any negative issues. So staff would argue that mixing commercial with residential in this neighborhood commercial zone district is appropriate. A concern was that it wouldn't be allowed in other residential areas, that, for instance, building a duplex in other residential areas on lots that are 7,000 square feet wouldn't be permitted. We are finding that our infill lots are getting developed and that they're maximizing their footprints. We're getting 1,500 square foot buildings, 2 stories, residences in a suburban residential zone district on a 7,000 square foot lot. And they're maximizing, and these are selling for 400,000 plus. This is what people want. Buyers can't buy them fast enough. Builders can't build them fast enough. And our infill lots are getting developed. So you could build a duplex of this size, of this type, in other multifamily zone districts that allow for duplexes, and you can build single-family units of the same character and type in residential zone districts, in small lots that were platted in the 1800s. Adjacent parking lot would be impacted. Again, the applicant has addressed this. They would be very cognizant of trying to controlling all of their construction impacts on their site, as any developer and builder would be required to do. The adjacent parking lots, they are responsible for monitoring their own parking lots to make sure that people aren't cutting through and that they're not being used inappropriately. There was a concern raised about no HOA, no controls. Well, this would be controlled by a homeowners association. There would be covenants that would control what can be used, what can go in there, whether you can hang your laundry outside on the deck, or however the covenants are written, typical covenants.
Laura, can I interrupt you on that one? For this particular type of zoning, is there a filing covenant? If in fact the apartments are built?
What they would be doing is submitting a townhouse plat, and with that townhouse plat, they would be submitting covenants that we would review at that time. So, again, there would be controls on the residential units that go in there through the covenants. A question was raised about chickens. Well, first of all, chicken coops and chickens would be allowed in the city in the suburban and urban residential zone districts only. You need a zoning development permit to allow for chickens. Would not be allowed. They are not allowed in commercial zones, and just because this is a residential use in a commercial zone, it still wouldn't be allowed to have chickens.
Fried chicken's okay. Yeah.
So, unless it's fried chicken, is that what you said? Sorry.
All right.
That some of the residents were concerned about losing parking on Forest Edge Road. Yes, you will lose parking on Forest Edge Road because they are proposing driveways off of Forest Edge Road, where right now there is no driveway. There's a ditch where you can park along the street. Any development of this site would lose parking, on-street parking, and the applicant has proposed adequate and available parking on site to address the needs of the parking for the proposed development. On-street parking is a luxury. And anybody can park on the street as long as they're not obstructing traffic or obstructing driveways. And development happens. You're going to lose this 100-foot strip of parking because it's going to happen whether it's a commercial development or a residential development. So there were a lot of questions raised about the drainage, flooding, debris in the ditches. Again, the applicant will submit a full drainage letter with his application for zoning development permit with construction. It will be reviewed by our engineering staff. They will meet our criteria. They are proposing swales that will take water from this site into the drainage channel that exists, and they will be building culverts that go below their driveways. And that should adequately mitigate the drainage issues. If there is debris in the ditches, of course the city maintains these ditches, and the city should be called, and we will go out there and clean them and make sure that they're clear and make sure that the drainage is working properly. There was a concern raised about residential uses as a downzoning strategy. This wouldn't be a downzoning. We're not changing the zone district in any way. It's going to remain neighborhood commercial, allowing residential in a commercial zone is a flexibility option and opportunity. And it wouldn't be a down zone, and staff does not believe there would be any decrease in value, property value, because of allowing residential in commercial zones. And there were concerns raised about impacts from surrounding businesses, noise, for instance, from Judd's Glass. Again, in the neighborhood commercial zone district, the uses are supposed to contain any noise, if there is any, based on the use that they're doing, within the building. And the applicant, in addition, has proposed further mitigation to their own buildings to compensate for any noise, external noises. And they're also mitigating from the commercial neighborhood with landscaping and even with some of their architecture. And finally, one of the other issues that were raised was issues about congestion at Lake and Rampart Range and additional traffic. Yes, anything you build on a vacant lot will create additional traffic. Keep in mind that the additional traffic from residential is less than what it could potentially be from a commercial zone. So, in conclusion, staff does recommend that City Council, based on the findings contained in the staff report and as presented at the public hearings, approve change in use zoning development permit, zone 19001, granting up to 2 dwelling units per lot as permitted conditionally on lots 6 and 7 in the Aspenwood subdivision to be constructed in substantial compliance with the application submitted. Thank you. That concludes my report. I suggest we get to the public hearing and then we can answer questions after.
Well, let's see if council has any questions of the applicant or staff. We can ask those now, unless you want to go to the public hearing and then circle back. Please.
So my quick question is, does it have to meet all, I understand this actually doesn't have to meet this criteria. So if it did, does it have to meet all 11?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Laura, thanks for any other before we go to public comment? Okay, great. All right, I will open public comment, and clearly you've heard a lot of information. I think a great presentation by the applicant and also by Laura. That said, we're running late. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I have a number of people signed up today, and this will be the parameters that I will allow. We'll give you 2 minutes. We're looking for facts. We're trying to get more facts. We're not looking for emotion from people that live in the surrounding area. That doesn't help us make a decision, okay? If somebody comes up and is repeating the person that's already said the same thing, I'd rather have new information from everybody. Okay, so if you have new information, we'd love to have you. We're going to start with Carrie Kilgore, and I am going to adhere to this 2 minutes. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I should be less.
Well, we appreciate that. I think everybody in this room does.
Carrie Kilgore with Prestige Realty. There is one item that was not part of the briefing. I was asked to take a look at best use and vacancy, both on commercial and residential. I first looked at commercial rentals as availability. As you all know, Woodland Exchange Building, Gold Hills South, Gold Hills North, the Woodland Park Professional Building, the old county building in the middle of town by Casa Grande, Morning Sun down by Old Denny's. All of those have available spaces, well over a dozen. And as I drive over, and those are just what I found in the MLS and LoopNet. And then as you drive around town, there are other signs posted for lease that are not even actively listed, such as the Life Medicine building back behind McDonald's, things like that. So rental or leasing options for commercial, unfortunately, we have more inventory than we have demand. I also looked at commercial sales. There are 6 properties listed that fall into these zones. Similar pricing. I tried to keep it under $500,000 because I think that's what these surrounding businesses are roughly, as well as what might go on this property, these properties if you were to develop commercial. And all 6 of those properties that are listed under $500,000 have been on the market for over 200 days. The third piece I looked at was residential demand. And when I looked at residential demand, I only looked for 2 bedrooms or more and 1 carport or garage. I did not limit lot size, bedroom, bathroom count, any of that. There are only 3 properties on the market currently, between $299 and $330. And then when I looked at the sales record for the last 6 months in this region, there were 7 homes. And when I say region, again, I didn't even put a bedroom parameter, just literally what has sold in the last 6 months. And they are all but one was between $299 and $330.
Sherry, 2 minutes goes by
done.
fast.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. Steve Runty. In case I forget, everybody just please, for the record, their name and address.
Yeah, I'm Stephen Runty. I live at 1030 Skyline Court up here. I am a teacher in District 20. I work at Eagle View Middle School. I teach 8th grade American history. I just want to talk a bit about the importance of affordable housing for teachers. It's no secret teachers don't make a lot of money, but we do it anyway because it's not about the money. It's that we care about kids and that we have an investment and believe in the future of the community and culture that we teach in. Because of this, we rely heavily on affordable housing, and unfortunately, a lot of the affordable housing that we find isn't always near the schools that we teach at. This lot is extremely in a great position for teachers. It is in walking distance of the schools. It's also in walking distance of downtown as well as the churches. So it would be great for teachers as well as other families. And that's about it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Deb Miller.
Good evening. Deb Miller, 210 East Midland Avenue, President with the Greater Woodland Park Chamber of Commerce. We've heard a lot of stats tonight. We've heard about the master plan, other stats. One stat you didn't hear tonight I wanted to bring forward to you came from the 2016 Affordable Housing Study that was chaired by former Councilman John Schaefer. And on page 44 in that study, it was talking about current catch-up in our community. How are we going to catch up and what were the needs for housing at that time? At that time, 2016, the current catch-up was 336 units that were needed. Needless to say, I'm no scientist here, but I'm guessing that those numbers have gone up since that time. So again, that was a study with data, 336 units needed in 2016.
That's great. Thanks, Deb. Olivia Franks.
I'm going to sacrifice my 2 minutes to the next person.
I appreciate that. Jeff Smith.
Jeff Smith, 1380 Rampart Range Road. I'm a Class A general contractor in town, also sit on Teller County Planning Commission. This was one of the better presentations I've heard by you, by the people and by staff. I think you guys got all the information you need. I think it's a needed project.
Thank you. I would agree with everything you said. Brian Brady, I hope that's right. Is that correct? Thank you, Jeff Pranchak.
Jeff Pranchak, the owner of Pikes Peak Rock Shop Wholesale, 451 Forest Edge Road, sort of just across the street from this empty lot. One thing I neglected to mention the last time we got together here was Pikes Peak Rock Shop sounds kind of quaint, but it's really a wholesale distribution company, and through that warehouse across the street from this business, every year I bring 200 tons of rocks. They come in 20-ton increments up Forest Edge Road on 20-foot or 40-foot cargo containers. And then they turn around and go out in tractor trailers to all the various 5,000 retail stores that I sell to. So there's that traffic. My biggest concern is that part of Forest Edge Road is like a little spur, and the congestion and the safety issues that arise, and whether or not people want to have tractor trailers 25 feet from their garage doors on a regular basis, probably twice a week on the tractor trailers. So that's something I didn't mention before, but I think it's a concern.
Great, thank you, sir. I think I misspelled this name or mispronounced this name last time. I hope I get it right. Is it Rod Conroy?
My name's Rod Conroy of the Glass Company over at 401 North Rampart. And I'm here tonight to voice my concerns with regards to the duplexes that are going next door to Judd's. I don't know if you've ever been over by us, but we're kind of a high-energy glass company, and we're very busy, and we're extremely noisy. And so we use all kinds of equipment. We use chop saws, impact drivers, glass grinders, air compressors, and fine knives. And that's one of the reasons why I can't hear, so I don't even know what half you guys said today. So. On the top of that, I have 5 to 10 delivery trucks that come in and out of the shop daily. And like I said before, we're noisy 8 to 9 hours a day. I have had some complaints from the condos across the street, but I always try to do that in-house. I mean, if somebody calls and complains, I go over and talk to them about it, and we work through it. So that's always been, I'm kind of a low-key guy. I don't like conflict. Let me put it that way. I know these are going to be condos, and the noise level that we produce, I know the real estate agent will not show those when we're there because of how much noise we do produce. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that aspect too. I mean, noise that's part of the glass company. And I wouldn't want to live next door to Judd's Glass, to be honest with you, because of the fact of the noise level. So, thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Dr. Brent Morrill.
I am Brent Morrill. I own a dental practice at 451 Rampart Range Road, adjacent to the proposed property. Mayor, I would respectfully ask that I get more than 2 minutes. I'd have to be an auctioneer to get through all this. I believe that there are 4 parts of the 11 rules that this does not comply to, and there's no way I'd be able to get through that in 2 minutes. So I would respectfully ask for a few more minutes if I can.
You may.
Okay. Appreciate that. So, under the conditional uses statement, it says that uses designated as conditional uses are contingent uses, not allowed by right or condition. They may or may not be appropriate in a particular location depending on the nature of the use itself and its relationship to the vicinity land use. An application for a conditional use permit, even though meeting the minimal standards of this chapter and code, may be denied if it is determined that the development and use is not in the best interest of the city. As you know, there are 11 rules. All of them must be compliant. I don't feel like the first one, the proposed development and use shall have a demonstrated direct need to be located at the location proposed. Mayor Levy, you voiced a concern at the last city council about the need for additional residential housing, and I totally agree with that. But I don't think that it should be at the expense of the very limited amount of commercial areas that are available or ever could be available in Woodland Park. With an influx of residents into Woodland Park, there will also be a future need for businesses, CPAs, attorneys, vets, doctors, dentists, childcare, etc. All businesses requiring commercially zoned lots. In fact, Steve Johnson told me that if these townhouses aren't allowed to go up, he has a buyer for that lot that would have him build a child care center there. This is the highest and best use of that lot. There are many other lots in town for residential dwellings that are already zoned as such. A quick search on Google shows that there are 48 residential lots currently for sale in Woodland Park, 15 of which are in a similar price range. So that shows that this does not have a direct need to be here. This can be somewhere else in town. There are currently 3 empty commercial lots for sale. None of them are in that price range, and very little potential for future commercial lots remaining in Woodland Park. I don't feel that it complies with number 3. The proposed development and use shall not substantially injure the value of vicinity properties. Although this is a tough one to predict, it is a well-known financial strategy to buy residential lots adjacent to commercial properties and have it rezoned to commercial for instant gain in equity. I've tried to do this myself. Kerry Kilgore's assessment, I would say that I would add that all of Woodland Park, not just in mixed areas, have gone up 19%, not just mixed areas. And you are all aware of the strict signage rules that neighborhood commercial lots must adhere to. Basically, the rule is that I can have a sign, but it can't be noticeable. I don't have the luxury of a big Swiss Chalet sign to be out close to the road like other businesses in town are blessed with. With a proposed 6-foot privacy fence and trees right next to the sidewalk on Rampart Range Road, my signage will be completely blocked from northbound traffic until you're actually turning into my lot. I was happy to hear that they would consider putting a split rail in there, but it wasn't the fence I was worried about, it's the trees. It will completely obscure my building. I don't feel that it complies with number 4. The proposed development and use shall be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located. There are 14 commercial lots on 2 blocks, with 9 businesses currently operating. There's nothing harmonious about cramming 2 residential duplexes smack dab in the middle of that. Just on that block, we will have a 1-story business, a 1-story business, a 2-story, 2 2-story duplexes, surrounded by a 6-foot fence with backyards facing Rampart Range Road, and then a 1-story business next to that. I don't see how this comes close to being harmonious for that area. Steve Johnson also informed me that these townhomes were specifically designed with 2 master suites to allow someone to build the unit, buy the unit, and then rent out the downstairs room, allowing multiple families or several unrelated individuals to reside in each unit. I would like to remind the City Council that according to the table of permitted uses, this is not an allowable use in the neighborhood commercial zone, even with a conditional use. I don't feel that it complies with number 6. The proposed development and use shall conform to the provisions, standards, and requirements of all city regulations. Residential dwellings of this type are typically something that would be going on a lot zoned urban residential or suburban residential. According to Woodland Park coding, the minimum lot size for this to be built on would be 7,500 square feet with a maximum density of 2 dwellings per acre. It does not state in the codes why 7,500 square feet is the minimum, but I would think that this is to prevent Woodland Park from looking like we just cram housing into spaces like big city urban areas. This lot is only 7,000 square feet, 500 square feet below the minimum space allowed or anywhere else in Woodland Park for residential buildings. It also states in the coding that any commercial building must be at least 15 feet away from any residential building. It does not state the reason for this, but again, I would think that it would be for fire mitigation, property value, and noise mitigation. The proposed duplex will only be 8 feet from Judd's Glass. You made a comment, Mayor, last time about you weren't totally thrilled about the storage units going across the street from you. Quick Google measurement, that's about 130 yards from you. If that was the case here, I would not be here complaining about it. This proposed building will be less than 100 inches from Judd's Glass. In the past 3 weeks, I've read the entire Woodland Park municipal coding 3 times, and then I read the Colorado Springs coding once. There's a very clear distinction between the two. It is very obvious that those who wrote the coding for Woodland Park did so with the intention of staying far away from having a big city feel. Cramming these 2 buildings into this 7,000 square foot small space is not what Woodland Park is about. I'd like to thank you for your time. I also want to say that my opposition to any of this has nothing to do personally in any way with Karen or Steve Johnson. They've been nothing but kind. everybody, and I hope that they feel the same way in the other direction. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Steve Randolph.
It'll be unmistakable when it goes up. Excuse me, the Steve Randolph, 1211 Mountain Meadows Drive. So I'm here in support of this applicant. I've heard everything I've heard from the staff, and their own presentation was very persuasive and compelling. I've had the privilege of being involved in Woodland Park governance for several years, 12 years on planning and city council. So I've heard virtually every land use application that's come to the city over a 12-year period. And in addition to that, being on the planning commission, or being on the master plan steering committee, the comprehensive use plan development, all of that, I've got a fairly broad perspective of what the city's about, how it got here, why we're the way we are, what we like about it, what we don't like. But more specifically, I own a condominium that's right across the street from Judd Glass. So when his big garage doors open and they're making noise in there, it goes right in the 2-bedroom windows that are at ground level across from that door. It's not dead quiet, but it's not offensive. I've owned it for 16 years. No one's ever complained. No tenant, no family member. So I don't have an issue there. I don't have an issue with semi-truck traffic, or whatever's been characterized as heavy truck traffic. I've never even seen a heavy piece of equipment on that road. So the issue with the dental office, I can't comment on that really, other than the fact that I just see no impacts that are unable to be mitigated. So I'm almost out of time here. Or am I not?
Well, we're waiting on your timer to go.
7 seconds. I'm going to stop it because I'm about out of stuff to say. I could go on for a long time about all kind of minutiae, which we've heard tonight, but I don't need to keep doing that. So in conclusion, I'm in favor of the project. I've heard a lot of very compelling commentary in opposition to it, and I find that myself personally unpersuasive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's all I have that have signed up tonight. Public comments still open. Give anybody here a chance. Young lady?
My 2 minutes back.
You may.
If I only need 2 minutes. I had a whole spiel that I was going to say. But what I'm going to say is,
Excuse me.
My name's Olivia.
And
it's 609 Park Street.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to know a little bit of background about me. I am a native of Colorado, and I am a co-founder of the Waldo Waldo 5K, which I don't know if you guys know. In the last 7 years, we've raised over $200,000 to support the Waldo Canyon mitigation. That being said, I have volunteered hours and hours of my time and have not made any money with this. And I hope that someday I'm in a financial situation where I don't have to care about noise, where I don't have to care about how close my neighbor is. But this kind of housing for somebody like me is what I can afford right now. And that's what's important, is people who want to embrace their community and be a part of their community, but can't live in the big house on the hill where it's quiet. We need to have options like that.
Thank you.
Great point. Thank you very much. Okay, young man.
So my name's Robert Mitchell. I live at 140 Vaquero Cinda. I've been fortunate enough to live in Woodland Park pretty much all my life with my family. I've known Steve and his family for quite a bit of time. My argument for the project and why I'm in favor of it is he's an ethical contractor. He is a member of this community. He clearly cares about this community, and he builds with his heart and with the community's best interest at stake. We risk somebody coming into this community that we're not familiar with, that doesn't have the same mindset or goals that this man has. And I'd hate to see this opportunity be passed up when one of our own had the chance to better our community. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Okay, one last chance. Nothing else, then we will close public comment. And we will move on to Aaron. If you have any rebuttal, this would be your chance. If not, we'll go on and ask questions. Are you good? Okay, we'll see if we have any for you. Council, it's your turn. Who would like to start? Staff and the applicant is readily available.
Mayor Levy?
Yes, ma'am.
May I rebut?
You may.
I'd like to answer some questions related to the zoning regulations, if
I
possible.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Very quick. So comments were made about Forest Edge Road congestion and truck traffic, and we've never received any complaints. I don't know what to say, except that there is traffic on Forest Edge Road, and the neighborhood is adjusting to it. It is a busy, noisy, adjacent land uses, but again, in the neighborhood commercial zone district, many land uses that are permitted in that zone district must contain their noise within the building. So that's just something to think about. And again, we haven't received any complaints about Judd's Glass, so I think we're doing great. Everybody's doing great. There was concerns about the size of the sign, for instance. Anybody developing in the neighborhood commercial zone district would meet all of the same sign requirements that any other person building a sign would build. And typically a sign is allowed, you're allowed 1 square foot for every linear foot of wall. So you can build a sign that size. And then the trees that are obscuring the surrounding signs, the applicant can change the trees and stagger them if they want. It's just a proposal to have them all lined up like that, but they can be staggered. And it'll take a while for those trees to get pretty mature and to obscure a lot of stuff. There was a comment about a 15-foot residential or 15-foot setback. That is a requirement in the neighborhood commercial zone district, where if you're building and you abut a residential zone like MFU or SR or UR, you have to have a 15-foot setback. This particular site abuts neighborhood commercial all around. And so there's no additional 15-foot setback from a residential zone. It's not a 15-foot setback from an adjacent commercial building, which is what had been stated. And then, just for the record, dwelling units, accessory dwelling units are permitted in residential zones and in this zone district in residential uses, and would just submit an application. They would have to submit an application, meet all the criteria for an additional dwelling unit, an accessory dwelling unit, which is like a mother-in-law suite. And then just keep in mind that Judd's Glass is a non-conforming structure. I don't know how it was built in the area that it was built in. It should have been built 8 feet away from that property line, like any other commercial building or building built in this zone district, but it wasn't. It was built 2 feet away, and the applicant in their design is proposing to meet the regulations, and their building will be 8 feet away. So I just wanted to clarify those items, and if there are any other questions from staff.
I think you should sit right there. Carol?
Could you go back to accessory dwelling units? As I recall, when we passed that ordinance, those are for family members only?
No, not necessarily for family members only. There are limitations in terms of where they can be located, in terms of whether they are within other neighboring dwelling units. So there's a certain density that, once capped, can't add more. So if there are other dwelling units around here, they couldn't build more in this site, for instance. So there's those kind of limitations. But there's limitations on square foot. 900 square feet, I believe, is what it is for a mother-in-law suite. And then there are other limitations that they have to meet. They have to provide parking, all that kind of stuff. But there's not a family member limitation.
Is there a prohibition on number of unrelated adults in ADUs?
Yes. Not in ADUs. There is in any residential unit a limit of no more than 5 unrelated adults that can stay in. So in any residential unit, you could have boarding rooms and have up to 5 unrelated people anywhere in the city, in the residential zones.
Paul?
For an ADU, I believe it's 900 square feet?
No. They could be. A portion of them could be.
Portion could be, they would have to have 900 square feet dedicated to it.
An ADU implies a full kitchen suite. It's a fully contained, separate unit.
So these could not be ADUs.
Pardon me?
These could not be ADUs.
They could have an ADU within them.
Meaning?
But they're not proposing them at this time.
Sorry. What I think he was talking about, and their intent is not to rent them to 2 people. The intent is that for like a teacher, 2 teachers could live in this home together and make it work, something like that. But the intent is not. It is for families. They're 3-bedroom. I don't know where that came from. That is not the intent of these at all. That's not a thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. No.
Oh,
Do you want to go last?
I'd like someone else to go in front of me.
Kelly?
Just like I said when we started the public hearing, I appreciate everyone's comments. I think they're well planned and of value. This is a permitted use, conditional use in this zone. They've, in my opinion, met the criteria. Some of the criteria are subjective. However, I find it to be a good project. If a commercial development were to go into this, the impacts upon the surrounding business owners and property owners would be greater. For instance, in drainage, you would have greater impervious surface in parking lot. It would cause greater drainage and impact the drainage situation greater than what this development would do. I think it's a good project. I think they've gone above and beyond making this be palatable to the surrounding uses. And so with that, I'll be voting in favor of this project at this point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Noel?
I'll go ahead. Like a lot of you know, we've had 2 weeks to think about this because this, for most of us, except for Carol,
I read my package.
We've had this presentation. So I wrote down some notes that I'd like to let the community know how I feel about this and how I'm going to vote for it. Woodland Park is growing. We all know this. How we as a council decide on this CUP will determine future growth of Woodland Park. It'll definitely set a precedent. Ms. Orby, that presentation was a lot better than the last presentation. It was informative. Thank you very much. I think the 3-3 vote actually helped you. So thank you. There is absolutely a need for affordable housing in this community. We all know this. In fact, if you go to any community in Colorado, they're having the same problem we are. They all need affordable housing. I don't think it's ever going to be to a point where we have no need for it. So I see this project as a benefit to the community and a reasonable price for affordable housing. So I look at the map and I see an apartment complex, I see a medical office, I see a dentist office, I see a glass business, a air and heating business. And then how do I come to this? Okay, I've heard everybody talk here, and I said, so how is this duplex is going to affect these businesses? How are they absolutely going to affect these businesses? They're not. I don't drive up and down Woodland. I don't drive around Woodland Park looking for a dentist office. I go to Google. So I don't think that this complex is going to affect the medical offices. Judd's Glass, I don't drive around looking for a place to get my windshield done. I know where Judd's Glass is, and I would probably Google it. So this building, this duplexes, they don't affect the businesses in any way. The interesting part is I've heard every person that's come up here and talked about property values, there's never been a person that said, oh, it's going to raise my property values. They always say, oh, it's going to reduce my property values. It's going to raise your property values. I mean, that's just the way it is. And that's a good thing. I mean, if you want to sell your business in the future, there you go. Let's see, what else do I have here? Woodland Park is growing. We have to accept that, and we have to accept this project. And I will be voting for it.
Thank you, sir. Val?
Thank you, sir. I live in this area, and so I'm highly familiar with all the questions and the traffic and the drainage and all that kind of stuff. But I'm also aware of something that has not been presented at all here tonight. And I've been talking with the school superintendent and other people about targeted qualified workforce housing as a real priority, not low-income housing, not whatever, affordable housing, but actually targeted qualified workforce housing. Qualified, absolutely. And I didn't hear anything like that tonight, but I'm interested in more of that being built in town. Now, historically, the high-density housing in Forest Edge has some historical crime area problems. I know that for a fact, and having lived there. So I'm opposed to putting more high-density housing in the Forest Edge neighborhood, just because there's already a history there of a significant crime problem. The PD does the best they can over there. They do a wonderful job, but it's right next to the school. We've seen some of the effects of that proximity on our school, and it's tragic. But for that reason, I'm going to vote no.
I'd just like to add, because my notes are all over the place. You can see how badly they're written, and then all the comments from everybody in the audience. The last time I voted no, and for some of you in the audience weren't here, I actually voted no, and because I felt that the duplex was too close to Judd's Glass. And finding out tonight that Judd's Glass is actually on the property line, which you'd almost want to say, well, Judd's Glass, you're going to have to pick up your building and move it 8 feet to the south. I'm sorry, but we can't do that. So, but I can't punish the applicant for Judd's Glass building being on the property line. So that's part of why I've changed my vote.
Hillary.
Well, I guess I'll get my 2 cents
There you go.
since everyone else has. I'm a strong advocate for private property rights. This fits within all of the conditional use permission. It wouldn't be coming to us had someone not complained. So technically, it would have just gone through without coming before us anyways. I appreciate the people who came to voice their concerns. Everyone spoke well. I wish that more people would come with positive comments who also speak well and attended council more often so that it could be not just on these types of topics. But there are already apartment buildings over there. There are already condos over there. It's not like there's no housing mixed within. So, and also it doesn't set a precedence with this decision because this type of decision has already been made in other areas in our city. So I'll be voting for it. So thanks.
Kelly?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask the chief to address the crime that's been brought up by Mayor Pro Tem Carr? Just in general, you don't have to give me.
Forest Edge in
You don't
general?
have to give me numbers, but
I'm not really prepared to answer that intelligently because we have crime in every area within our community, and it runs the wide range. If we want to talk about domestic violence, we can pick every single subdivision within our city, and we do have that. It's just not as visible because it's usually handled within the building. So it's difficult for me to respond directly to that. The 800-pound gorilla in the room would be the Kelsey Barrett case. Yes, she lived about 2 blocks away from that location on Lake Avenue. There is some crime back within Forest Edge, but I wouldn't say that it is any more significant than some of the other areas that have that dense housing within our community.
Thank you. I just don't like to hear, no offense, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, come and live at my house. We'll
I just don't
talk
like
about
to
it.
hear stigmatizing of neighborhoods in our community, particularly in the business that I'm in. It's not all a bad neighborhood. Woodland Park certainly doesn't see the crime that some of our surrounding communities see. So thank you for helping me with that, Chief.
Well, I think my vote probably won't count tonight, but I'm glad I did get to hear both presentations again. And Aaron, that was a terrific presentation. But the bottom line is, this is a permitted use for this piece of property. We had contention from neighboring property owners, and I'm glad they had their opportunity to speak to everyone. But weighing both sides, there's really no compelling reason not to use this for what it was intended to be used for.
Well,
just to rebut Councilman Case, there has been significant slop over from high-density housing crimes into other areas, and that was my point. The high-density housing areas tend to have, and there's one right next to my house, and so I have intimate knowledge of this. And so my point is trying not to add more high-density housing in the area that we already have a lot of high-density housing. The fabulous presentation's a little long. We were sold. I wanted to call Uncle about a half hour into it, but I appreciate all the intelligent thought and the sales pitches done by both the applicant and the staff. But my point was the high-density housing, but my intention from council is to hopefully get more targeted qualified housing, really targeted qualified housing, and that's all I wanted to say.
anyone else?
Call the question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Looking for a motion to approve. There's not a number on it.
I'll move to approve the dwelling unit change in use zoning permit as presented by the applicant and staff this evening.
Second. And a second. Chrissy?
Labar?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Sonier?
No.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Carr?
No.
Case?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Well, I would have voted yes if
Carol.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You just,
Oh, I did mess up on my first time as the clerk. I was so... Harvey. Now it carries 5-2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations to the Johnsons. Everybody in this room should be congratulated for, certainly for the presentations. Aaron, outstanding. Laura, outstanding. And everyone's approach tonight just makes me proud of the community we live in. We don't always get our way, but I think everyone was heard, and that's the most important thing to this council. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate the process, and we will move on to new business. And Kip Wiley.
Thank you. Before council tonight is Resolution 843. I can wait if you want me to.
Yeah. We're going to give you an opportunity to leave if you'd like to.
Me too?
You got to stay.
I won't take offense, I promise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, in one sitting. I'm sorry you guys had to have it a second time. But it was a good presentation.
Okay, Kip, thank you.
Thank you. So in front of council tonight is Resolution 843. This is the Water Tap Management Reconciliation. Back in 1997, council approved ordinance, 703, to do within that ordinance requires an annual review of the water or utility fund. Of that review, it establishes tap fees effective April 1st of that year. This plan has been presented to the Utilities Advisory Committee,
and we do have one member here tonight. Mrs. Stinner, excuse me, is here, and they did recommend approval of this to City Council. And Mr. Saunier was also present at the meeting, so he can also answer questions as well. So before you is the reconciliation for 2018. On your dais, I gave you 3 spreadsheets. I'd like to first start off with the debt service schedule that's in front of you. That is basically outlining the debt and future debt for the water enterprise. Currently, we are repaying a 2002 loan, and that was for the North Wellfield. That's the only loan that we are paying on at this time. It's about a $59,000 loan, and that expires in 2022. We are currently looking at paying that off early due to our fund balance, which you will see in a minute. But this spreadsheet also shows future debt, which will start in 2020, which is the augmentation reservoir. And then in 2025, additional conveyance capacity in the Homestake pipeline. Okay, moving on to the next spreadsheet was the water capital expenditure schedule spreadsheet. So these are the cash funded projects in the water enterprise. Everything above the dashed line is actuals, with the exception of 2018. Those are not audited yet. Those are our initial calculations for what was spent in 2018. But everything below that dotted line is future expenses. Those include a $1 million cash down payment on the reservoir, a Sunnywood booster station improvement, also the Twin Lakes purchases that council graciously approved a couple council meetings ago. Those are also included in here. And then future expenses to include the automatic meter read system that's being implemented as we speak. That is a 4-year, $250,000 budgeted line item. And we are in the 2nd year of that program, which is going very well. We've got about 1,300 meters replaced so far in about 1 year, so it's about 1/3 of our meters. So, and then moving on to the larger spreadsheet, I have, and I apologize to those in the audience. It's hard to pull this up on the TVs because it's so large. You have to squint quite well to see it. But I just wanted to go through the spreadsheet, the large spreadsheet, so you can determine or see how we determined how to move forward with a 5% TAP increase for 2019. So reading the spreadsheet from left to right, it basically starts off with taps available, taps sold, commercial taps sold. Going further to the right, end of year taps connected, then your average tap fee revenue, water development fee revenue, annual commodity or revenue per tap, and then the total commodity revenue. Continuing on to capital replacement fees per tap and total fees, and I'll go through those numbers in detail in a minute. Total customer revenue, total operational costs, debt service, capital expenses, and then annual balance. And the far number on the right is the cumulative fund balance for the fund. Everything above the dotted line is actual numbers with the exception of 2018. 2018's numbers are not audited yet. Everything below the dotted line is future projections. So in those future projections, we have a 3% increase factor for expenses, a 2% increase fee for inflation, and in that 2% is carried on for all expenses, all revenues. I use a 2% inflation factor when we've been tracking it for the last 13 years. The annual increase is about 2.13%, and it varies. It's been negative some years, but for the last 13, the average is 2.13, excuse me. So a 2% is a conservative number to estimate revenues going up, and the 3% obviously is a little bit over that to anticipate expenses coming up. Looking at the spreadsheet, you'll see the first highlighted orange column where there's an 18 behind that. That's how many taps were budgeted for 2019. Directly above that where it was 39. That's how many taps, single-family taps, were sold in 2018, which is slightly down from 2017 of 46. And you can see all the way at the top at the year 2013, we were at 6 taps. So growth has occurred in the last 6 years. I think we have grown around 360 some from a water population standpoint. Moving to the right, what's highlighted in gray, I always like to bring this number up. This is your average tap fee. That's $11,663. What's interesting about that number is a Tier 2 tap, which is what I would call an average tap fee. That's an average size house with average water fixture units. Right now is $12,605. So in 2012, we put into effect the tiered tap system. And I think what we're finding is more people are building Tier 1 homes, which are a little bit cheaper from a tap perspective. So the average tap fee is a little bit lower than what I would call an average tap fee or a Tier 2 single-family home. Right directly below that, highlighted in red, is $13,235 amount. That is what we are proposing to be the new tap fee for a single-family Tier 2 home. In 2019, and that's about an $800 increase than what it is right now.
Kip, can I interrupt?
Yes, ma'am.
For multifamily, what is the tap fee? Is it based on the same tier level? I can't recall.
No, there is a separate cost for multifamily, and that is basically they pay per fixture unit. In an average multifamily unit, a water tap fee will be right around $9,000 for a unit.
So the proposed project that we discussed tonight, would that be multifamily or not?
That's single family. Single family tap, multifamily project, if that makes sense.
So single family tap, that would be based on fixtures.
So it'll be based off fixtures in the tiered tap system.
Thank you.
4 taps, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Kip, one question, sorry, before you go on. You said the increase was $800. I'm looking at $11,663 and $13,235. What am I missing?
Right now, the average or a Tier 2 tap fee is $12,605. The reason why the $11,663 is in there is because more people are buying Tier 1 taps instead of Tier 2, which I would call an average tap. Yeah, because we have the single family has Tier 1, 2, and 3, and they go up as you put more fixtures in a home. I think what we're finding is more people are purchasing Tier 1 taps as opposed to Tier 2 or 3. Now, that can vary also depending on commercial taps that are purchased. But your main commercial taps are a 3/4 inch tap, which is the same price as a Tier 2 single-family home. So,
thank you.
Another point I'd like to make out is highlighted in gray. Under column I, you see a dollar amount of $42.71. That's how much a customer pays in a year for capital fees. And then moving on to the right, you'll see that $156,000. That's the capital fee revenue. That's actually gone down over the years, and I think we're just doing a better job of collecting, and there's less late fees, to be honest.
Low flush toilets.
So, well, this is just the capital fee.
Oh.
So, but if you go back to column H, you'll see the $1.8 million. I think in 2018, revenues will be a little bit higher because I'm just optimistic that it'll be a wetter year and people will use less water. So, but that's just being optimistic. Okay, moving farther to the right, highlighted in blue, the 1.3, that's our operating costs. For the year, you can see we're slightly down from last year, just about $11,000 when you compare 18 to 17. And then moving over to the far right, highlighted in green, that's our annual increase in our fund balance, the $629,000. And then for a total of projection of 2018 of $4.5 million as a fund balance. The other things I want to point out, going back to the left, highlighted in blue, under column E, you have $13,897 as an average tap fee. The reason I highlight those is I have a 0% tap fee projected for 20 and 22, or 21 and 22. The year 21 and the year 22.
So you're projecting 0 increases for those years?
That's currently trying to give everybody a break when it comes to tap fees, and so I'm projecting no tap fee increase there. Also highlighted in green, in 2020 I have a decrease in rates of 6.85%. which some people will say that is crazy because we have a big reservoir we're looking at building, but I still think we can withstand that decrease.
I know the building community and builders will appreciate that.
So hopefully we can keep it in there.
Yeah, that's great. Good job.
Moving further over to the right, highlighted in red under column N, I just highlight those large annual capital expenses. Those are due to the reservoir, the $1 million, and in 2019 and in 2020, if you go to the capital page, there's quite a bit of upgrades and CDPHE requirements that they're slating for that year. However, in 2032, you can see our fund balance dips to about 1.6 million. I'm trying to hold a steady fund balance right around 2. So we'll probably have to move some things around to maintain 2, but I think that's a good place to keep it at, fund balance. With that, UAC had recommended approval of the 5% increase to water and sewer tap fees for 2019, effective April 1st. And Ms. Dinner is also here if you have any questions for her.
Council? Now.
Thank you, sir. I apologize for not getting with you beforehand. I usually do. Things came up. Sorry. The 5% you picked. How'd you come up with that?
So the municipal code is in part of the water tap management plan recommends that it's increased 5% if you increase it.
Okay, so I heard 2 point something expense things, and I noticed you're sitting solid at 5 for 3 years, I guess. I'm also worried about the developers and their tap fees, and the impact of the developers. But was there any thought about staging that, as opposed to just a one-time and then holding it flat?
Every time we've increased them since 1997, it's been 5%. Except for there was about a 2 or 3 year window in there where there was a 0% increase when tap sales were really low. I think what's fair to our existing customers to help fund the bill for everything is you try to find that balance between existing and new development. Right now we're at about a 60-40 split where existing customers have carried 60% of the load where new development has carried 40% of the load as far as capital improvements go. If you look at tap fees also around, we did a comparison. Monument's water tap fee is at $19,000 where we're suggesting just over $13,000. The city of Fountain is at $17,000. We're still below that. So we try to keep a healthy balance so that our existing customers don't have to carry the entire load when it comes to keeping up our water system.
Thank you.
Council, anyone else? I'll just weigh in quickly. I'm going to vote for this, but here's my concern. And it's got nothing to do with the developers and the builders. The more we keep increasing tap fees, the more we're going to price ourselves out of the market for affordable type housing. And that's always going to be an issue. I know it's market driven. I'm a free enterprise guy. I get it. Sometime, council, we're going to have to consider how we're going to move forward. And I don't know what that looks like. I wish I had a great answer for anybody that might have a question. I think we heard it here tonight. There's concerns in our community. Can we afford to do that? Will developers, will builders be able to do that? I don't know. They're telling you right now they can't build a house based on fees and cost of real estate and all those things. No one's building a house for under $300,000. And the teacher that was here today can't afford that. And we have declining enrollment in schools because 30, 40-year-old couples, unless they have 2 great jobs, are going to struggle living in Woodland Park. And so I'm not advocating necessarily for anything, but just something to think about moving forward. And if we really want, right, to manage those folks and give them an opportunity to live here, or we're just kind of talking about it. Carol?
When consideration is made for this 5% increase, are you looking at tap fees in like-sized communities or even competing communities like Colorado Springs?
We always try to find what other municipalities are charging. It's very hard to read who charges what for taps. There's always little fees in here, so this is for what I'm requesting is our plant investment fee. We still have an additional water rights fee and then a physical connection fee. When you look up other folks' codes, they're just as hard to try to figure out how or what they charge for taps, because there are hidden fees within that. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, I understand the difficulty in trying to make apples to apples, but I think next year going forward, if we could get just a general feel for what our tap fees might be compared to a competitive market.
Well, and I can do that absolutely. I think what to add to the mayor's comments are: do you have a high development cost and a lower consumer cost? Our utility bills are fairly low, I think.
And that is a trade-off for the homeowner.
So when you buy a house, do you want a lower utility bill, or do you want to pay that up front, or when you build a house? So you buy a house whenever you try to buy it when the market's low. Hopefully you can absorb whatever the developer purchased or built for previously, but try to keep those costs so people can still afford. And water is not going down in price. The purchases that we approved for the Twin Lake shares, it just keeps going up and up and up.
Excellent point, and I can't believe you've been here for 13 years. Thank you for your service.
Council, any other questions for Mr. Wiley?
Has your work schedule started easing up so that you could re-enter talks with the Boy Scouts about a reservoir?
We're getting close. Jason and I have actually had a conversation since he's started on some of that, and I couldn't do this without Ben right now. It's a steady stream still.
I'm sorry?
It's a steady stream still.
Okay.
With work.
Thank you.
Hillary?
This is one of those topics where I think it's ideal for like the work session with Kip so that we could better understand what we're voting on. Because you're saying every year it goes up by 5%?
That's when it's been raised 5%. There was years in the past where tap sales were extremely low, and the economy wasn't great, and we had a 0% increase.
Okay.
But other than that, it's been a 5%.
And the 5% is a recommendation? Like you could say 2.5%?
I'd have to read a little bit more into the code. It's not crystal clear on exactly how the increase. I've followed protocol from here.
Yeah. Okay.
And Kelly might be able to answer it. Not to put you on the spot, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
When
they're done that.
When was the last time the fees were raised? Last year? What about the year before?
They've been raised 5% every year, and I think the last year we did not raise them was 2012 or 13, somewhere in there. So about 5-6 years ago. So, but in 1997, council approved the ordinance to increase tap fees 5% every year regardless.
Okay, that's true. Thank you.
Because they realized the value of water and how to get there. There was lots of improvements that needed to be done. And that's when we purchased a lot of our Twin Lake shares.
Right, yes. Yeah. We've bought lot of water in those years, so funding that was... Water's terribly expensive.
Right. Yeah. If you go back to the debt service sheet, you'll see in 2015, we finally paid off the most of our debt with water shares and water bonds, and it was $750,000 annual payment, although there was a loan in there from wastewater to water. But a lot of the debt had been expired right around that time. So we're in a good position now, but we need to protect our future as well.
Thank you.
Okay. And our future really does. And, I really believe for Woodland Park to grow the way it's going to grow, and in the future possibly incorporate other lands and things of that nature and supply the water that is needed for this community, absolutely lies in our reserves of fresh water. A pipeline or drinkable water, a pipeline is finite, can only carry so much. And there's the choke point for me in looking at the city in the future. It all hinges on, will we have the water? And we, right now, are in a good way to have that water with the possible high-altitude reservoir very close to town. So that's very important.
Anybody else? If not, we'll call for a motion to approve Resolution 843.
Public comment, maybe?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's resolution. It's a resolution.
It says
It is resolution.
public
Right.
comment may be heard.
Yeah, because it's a resolution, we don't.
Okay.
Motion to approve Resolution 843 as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
And a second. Chrissy?
All right. Levy?
Yes.
Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Case?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Labar?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Kip, you don't hear this enough. Great job.
Can I add just a couple of things too?
Please do. Please do.
I appreciate the questions more than you know, and if it helps, we may be able to set up a different time when we review this with the UAC. That is an open public meeting, and everybody's welcome to come to that as well. Also, effective April 1st is our annual rate increase. That's based off the Consumer Price Index of 2.73%. So water rates will go up 2.73% as well, April 1st.
Would you please pass along thank you and good job to Kelly as well?
I will do that.
Thank you.
And Hillary, to which you said, I sat on UAC, I think my first year or two as mayor, and it was the greatest learning experience because what you said, I mean, when they gave me this, that first day where we had it on the board, I just laughed. No idea what any of that means. I thought water just came to your tap, but I had no idea. So there's all kinds of great options. He's got a tour that's unbelievable, and it's really fun and great knowledge. So, and that goes for everybody in the community, right?
Absolutely.
If you want to, the water tour is fantastic. It really is. So, and UAC once a month still when needed?
When needed.
When needed.
Wastewater is the best, though.
Okay, we'll move on to reports, and the mayor's report, I'll be quick. One notice event today, Lunch and Learn, Generational Diversity. That's Thursday, April 4th from 11 to 1 at the UPass Cultural Center. What else am I forgetting, Deb? You might. Thank you. After our next meeting, right? Because it's the
after the next meeting. But the Chamber Business Expo is April 11th. It's sold out. So this is an opportunity for residents to come. It's not like a business after hours. We want our residents to come out and speak with our business owners about the products and services that they have.
Great, thank you. Okay, Val.
Nothing, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This case?
No, thank you. I have nothing, Your Honor.
Nothing. Ms. Harvey?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mrs. Labar?
I just quickly like to say that I really appreciated our earlier work session and the way that we're improving our communication together. I think is an excellent direction that we're headed in. So thanks.
Once again, I'm sorry I had to miss that. Paul?
Yeah, I too agree with Hillary. My lovely Lila is having her knee replaced Monday the 25th. I appreciate everybody asking about her and all of that. So please, if anything comes up in next week, I'm going to be a little bit busy, and I'm not trying to dodge anybody, but have a little respect for my time while she recovers.
Got it.
Thank you so very much, everybody, for participating.
Blessings and prayers for her.
Thank you so much.
No. Okay, I'll move on to Jace.
So anytime you give an attorney an opportunity to speak, nothing
No.
actually.
Nothing.
Sure. I will say the third week was just as great as the first two, so I'm still excited to be here.
You're still here.
I think we like him more already. All right, Dan.
Welcome to Woodland Park, Jason. I just want to acknowledge that Chief Miles DeYoung was named the Chamber of Commerce Employee of the Year on Friday, so I want to just acknowledge that. And he's done an excellent job under tough times over the last, in 2018, but mostly at the end of the year during that time. It's well deserved. And then I'd just yield the rest of my time to Sally Riley, who would like to make another announcement.
Thank you. I wanted to acknowledge a recent awardee, Carol Harvey, for the Les Malott Jr. Award. This is part of the Teller County Cares volunteer recognition, and so Ms. Harvey will be receiving her award at the breakfast on April 10th, and we're really thrilled for all the service and contributions that Councilmember Harvey has made to our community, both on the Planning Commission, working with the Comprehensive Plan, and with City Council. So congratulations.
Excellent. Good for you. Well deserved.
Do I get free breakfast?
You do. You do, for sure. That's it. Wow, well, thank you all for coming. If we have nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
I haven't been aware of this, but I was very honored.
What's that?
I'll wear my scrubs next time, and then I'll have the interview.
Or wear your baseball uniform. They should have seen the first